Welcome to a dose of deeper contemplation. We have cultivated this self-healing practice as we navigate the many aspects of modern life with the desire to be a better human. As a psychic medium, these conversations are channeled, so let's take a walk together and talk it out. We haven't been on a walk in a while, and that is really just because of resistance. And isn't it fascinating when we'll say our human side, because that's what feels most descriptive, kind of continues to get in the way with some resistance. But we are so grateful for our human side today, because that human side said, you know what? We're going to do our rituals, even though we are feeling depleted by having had a very full, busy week with all of the things, the domestication, the breeding responsibilities, the capitalism responsibilities, and we've just not taken the time to be responsible for our well-being, for our own well-being. It's been a lot of outpouring. And we had this moment to finally take a breath. And even though there's depletion, and even though that good old clock is ticking away on a Monday morning, y'all better get to work now. Just shh. Quiet. Let's have some stillness. Let's go into what we know brings us to presence, because that is a life that we are dedicating to now. We have already dedicated decades of life to not living in presence, dedicated our life, all of the to-dos for others, even our own identity, meaning even our own knowing of self in true, authentic existence, we dedicated to others' approval, meaning we concealed our true self in order for others to feel righteous and comfortable in our presence. We concealed our beautiful queer identity, our representation of self, our representation of source energy in its unique form. That is a life that is being dedicated to, and that requires some rituals in order to reprogram ourselves out of the construct of conforming. And one of those rituals, folks, it has been decided to share with you today. And it's fascinating because there is definitely some resistance, but the reassurance is that magic will be received where magic needs to be received. And it ain't for everyone, but it's a certain type of magic. And this magic, y'all, is called sex magic. Now, we will share what we would say is an elementary understanding of sex magic, meaning we have just begun to study this deep, ancient craft. And the lineage of this craft can be found in so many cultures. And always to make sure that those cultures and lineages and traditions are honored, are acknowledged. And that is why we continue to study the different lineages of sex magic. So what we have studied about sex magic thus far was being called to share. As an intellect very interested in science, what we feel very connected to in sex magic is the biology. Now, we know some folks out there are clutching their pearls, and that is valid. This subject is outside of the comfort zone for many, especially as a womb body. And historically, the narrative has been that womb bodies are suppressed sexually. So for all of you amazing folks out there clutching your pearls, acknowledge you and invite you to open up maybe just a little, to understand something about the human experience from a very different perspective. Or you don't have to listen. That's fine too. Those of you who are still listening, and the topic of sex magic is of curiosity, welcome to the conversation. What we like talking about first with sex magic here is about the biology of it, because at the core of our oneness is our human body and the mechanisms that are designed within it. Pleasure mechanisms. There are certain ways to touch and stimulate the body in which it begins to generate an energy. We understand that energy feeling as pleasure. What happens when you begin to feel pleasure and are stimulated? Now, this is a very simple practice of awareness. Our suggestion is to do this in self-pleasure. It's easier to focus on your own body, because that's the idea. The idea is begin to explore in self-pleasure so that you can understand how your body is turned on, as they say. But really look at the nuances. Really look at how your body reacts. Why does the heart begin to beat a little bit faster? Why does the breath begin to... Why do sounds want to come from us? Why? These are all expressions, animated expressions, biological expressions. Now, what's going on in the mind is very much an individual journey. Part of our sex magic practice is to really cultivate a meditative mind, to be so present with the body. Become so focused on every touch. Become so focused on the way the air feels on your skin. Become focused on the smell in the room, which can also induce more pleasure. So light up them candles, light up that incense. Stimulate the body. At times, if we have some troubles focusing in on being present with pleasure, we begin a mantra saying a casting. Feels good. Feels good. Just start to say that. Feels good. Let the body know it's okay to feel good. We are definitely living in a modern time where that is not the case. Bodies do not feel good, and many bodies do not feel good in pleasure. Many bodies are traumatized by sex. Sex magic is about the exploration of power, energy that we cultivate within ourselves. It has nothing to do with another person. It has everything to do with exploring why do we have the ability as humans to feel so good, even better, more good, so good that we explode. What is that? Release. The mechanism in the body that goes through that cycle and into a release and then releases all of these natural hormones into our body that just, makes us feel so good. Why would that be part of the human design? It's a fascinating question and exploration to have. And this curiosity can be channeled into feeling like, what's calling you to learn from here? For our experience, it was in Tantra. Started to read so much, listen to those who've been teaching it, finding the oldest books possible. What is this? There's more to it. There's so much more to it than the construct in which this energy has been suppressed. And we will just speak from our own experience, having been assigned woman for so long, and in that misunderstanding, let that pleasure energy be captivated by a man. Held could only be experienced with this one individual. Though this man, historically, narratives have supported their pleasure anytime, anywhere they want it. Anyhow, self-pleasure, masturbation, absolutely, it's healthy. Men do it all the time. Go out and have sex with as many people as you can. Yes, totally supported. Men go out and do that as much as you can. It's normal. In our own experience, when our mother, doing the best she could, saw that we were touching our own yoni at a young age, she said, stop that. Do not do that. That's disgusting. And that young, impressionable mind got very scared because fear is how we were controlled. That was the formative mind. And in our adolescent time where the bodies are growing and hormones are raging and feels are being felt, and that exploration of wanting to feel the pleasure was maybe with one guy here over at this party and then maybe another guy over here a week later. Well, that became with the title slut. And at the time, for us, that was an unwanted label. So now here we are on the search. It had to be one person, one gender, one at a time, and only when that was available. Any other time when we were alone and that desire was coming forward, well, it just simply had to be suppressed. Now, having reinstated a very healthy practice of self-pleasure, and in fact enjoying thoroughly, not just from the pleasure aspect, from the energetic side, from the health side, meaning only sex with self has been one of the most healing times. So not only has this is healing, not only can sex magic be healing, but it is also an awakening to another way of expressing and casting energy. Now, when you cast with sex magic, that is a powerful invocation. So just be aware of that. Anytime an individual decides to go into a practice of wielding energy, whatever you call it, it's important to be aware of that responsibility. One thing we really appreciated about studying witchcraft is that a core foundational belief, though of course, as we know, in spiritual practices, not everyone adheres to this, is harm to none. Point being, sex magic is pretty powerful. The basics of how we have learned, and this is an ongoing education, but to share at least this bullet point version, is that when you go into self-pleasure, it becomes a meditative state. So if you already have a meditation practice, you probably already know, maybe you go into a quiet room, maybe you play some meditative music, you get in a comfortable position, you just simply breathe. And similar to meditation, this can be a very helpful practice to do when perhaps you may be feeling heightened states of stress. We want to preference that this is very different than rubbing one out, as they say. For us, it really does feel like a way that we are caring for the health of our mind, body, and spirit. It's a sacred thing. And how grateful to have come into a healed place where something that was sexual at one point in time in our lives, and that sexual was associated with sinful, has now transmuted into something that is sacred. That the field of pleasure that we enter into is sacred. So consider this a sacred time, a meditative time, to be with self, to explore your body, to offer it things that feel good, to give that space as long as you can or as long as you need. You know, sometimes in the flow of the schedule of the day, we only have 20 minutes. But how important to our health it has been that we took those 20 minutes and gave ourselves that pleasure to generate the energy, the feelings that start to course through our body. That energy that builds up to climax, that is a powerful energy to cast out. So as you cultivate this sacred time for yourself, coming into meditation, coming into presence with your body, begin the stimulation that you need to cultivate, that the heart starts to beat and the breath starts to get breathless and the sounds want to come from your throat, feeling all the good feelings, all of the stimulation, and you let that grow, and you let that grow, and you let that grow more. And as it's growing, instead of that energy being cast out to the intention of another, and to give that context, let's say there's another person traditionally in this act of pleasure, and that growing desire, right, to get to that climactic level. Sometimes they say something like, give it to me. Yes, yes, give it to me, right? And instead of that focus being on the giving that is from the other being, there is no other that is controlling this power within you. It's not dependent on whether he can stay hard or not. It's not dependent of how long he can last. It's all for you. And it can be an exploration to even say that to yourself in that moment. Cultivate it. Yes. Yes. Receive. Receive. Sometimes we'll just chant, I receive, I receive. The connection to that is I receive from the universal energetic source. I receive and allow the experience for this human body to exude pleasure, to go into a heightened state, connecting deep to the magic, connecting deep to the energy. It's not another human that is penetrating or stimulating. It is the energy within you. It is the energy that is all around you. All the things, everything is made up of this energy. And it's taking a moment of receiving it so fully, receiving it from yourself. And just like any other invocation, come into that conversation, come into that energy exchange with an intention. That intention, our suggestion is that intention is for your evolution as a person. Have you been asking life, what is next? Is your soul hungry for something? And whatever that next thing is, how does it benefit not only you and your health, but the well-being of others? Some folks call this soul purpose, your unique life journey, your unique path, the blueprint, what it feels like to align with that and flow with that. And oftentimes we come into this ritual just saying that we're a willing passenger on this ride. Even if it's just this one day, what would like to be revealed, expressed through this existence? Now, of course, today when we ask this question, this podcast happened. Talk about sex magic. It's been a game changer in our life. And even if you don't use it as magic, simply the health you gain by experiencing your own climactic divine pleasure. Such a healing experience. But in that moment of your climax, you call out your invocation. You call out your desires to the universe. Now, if you're a little worried about your neighbors who are pearl clutchers, you can also just think about it. But if you just think about it, bring it so viscerally into your mind. Visualize it. Visualize it as you let that climactic energy emerge through you. Hold it while you ride the wave of that orgasm. See energy, electricity being coursed through your body. So much pleasure that it's contorting. So much pleasure that it's releasing sexual fluids. Whatever that heightened state of pleasure feels like for you. There's an energy that radiates from you in that moment that is unlike anything. Use it for your own healing. Use it to cast out good and peace for yourself and others. But the invitation is to explore this experience. Thank you so much for being with us in this conversation. This is Deep Dose, and we are Eden.